right. Is this working? Cool, you guys can all see the video out there? Hallelujah, that is great to hear. Cool. Sweet. So, for those of you who are out there watching, the whole reason... Oh, by the way, first and foremost, I am so sorry that I'm so late getting on. It turns out that live streaming on YouTube is actually kind of a thing. And I did not have the necessary software installed, and it's been something of a arduous task in order to get here. But we're here now. So the reason I'm doing this live stream is because earlier today I uploaded a review of these. These are ePoi by Emazing lights, and the review focused completely on how they are as a product, and didn't really talk that much about some of the controversies surrounding the company itself, which a lot of people who've responded to it are angry that I left that stuff out, and there are quite a few people that would like to get some kind of, I guess, acknowledgement of some of what they consider to be Emazing's bad ethical practices and everything. So here's the long and short of it for those of you guys that aren't caught up right now, is that so ePoi are very, very similar to PodPoi, which are made by Flow Toys. I don't know how well this is going to come through on the video, but the long and short of it is that the PodPoi and the ePoi, they're both kind of silicone housings that have inside of them a small cylindrical lighting unit that's powered off of a battery that gets activated by a button on the end. There's also the thing that both of them have seams in the silicone shell, which are used to be able to kind of plug a USB charger into. Now, as you can see, the ePoi are just a little bit bigger than the PodPoi, and they're slightly different shape. They're more pear-shaped than egg-shaped. But from across the room, unless you were really familiar with the lighting modes, you probably would not be able to tell the difference. Or, you know, if you wanted to take a look at the color of the tether, because of course the other big difference there is that the tether's black as opposed to gray. And their marketing materials were really, really similar to Flow Toys, and they come in kind of a brush cotton bag and everything that looks very much like the bag that PodPoi come in as well. So Emazing's CEO Brian Lim actually got on a live stream on Facebook and said, you know, yes, we copied a lot of these design features and everything, and they're changing the marketing materials around it because the photography that they use on their website was really similar as well. And, you know, basically said, yes, we copied a bunch of stuff and issued a mea culpa on it. The other thing that Emazing is kind of controversial for is for kind of what I would call a laissez-faire approach to intellectual property in terms of content creators. That is, they have a tendency to take videos that have been created by a lot of different people and either repost them without asking first on their Facebook page, like freebooting, or copying them into videos like they did for Nick Woolsey and everything. And again, it's been one of those situations that when they've been caught doing it and called out, you know, they've added credits and everything. I've had conversations with Brian Lim on the topic. Do I think it's never going to happen again? No, I don't think it's never going to happen again. But this is kind of like a 1,000-foot view of why this is kind of a controversial company right now. So I wanted to give some of you guys out there a chance to kind of ask me some questions, both about the ePoi and PodPoi, as well as any questions you have about Emazing, as far as I can answer them, or my relationship with them, or what the future of all of this looks like. So, have them come at me now. So I see Alexander Roman's got a question of how do they compare to PodPoi? So couple things. The biggest one for me is that they weigh more than the PodPoi do, and it's actually something that I find really comfortable. I love PodPoi, but if there's one thing that has always kind of been something that I wish that they would do differently, it's that they would weigh a little bit more. Now here's the caveat on that. If they weighed more, they would not be as good for beginners because they would be less soft and they would have a harder impact. That said, once you get past that beginner stage and everything, you want to have something heavier to work with a lot of the time, especially those of us that work in the contact poi realm. And the Emazing poi, if memory serves, weigh exactly the same amount as a light set of contact poi. So I like the way that they feel personally. In terms of other comparisons, clearly they're harder. So, as I mentioned in the review, they're right on the edge of what I would consider to be appropriate for beginners to use in terms of the potential for injuries, especially to sensitive areas like on the face or genitals or what have you. So, the long and short of it is that, you know, in the price range, PodPoi are still the most versatile thing out there. They're good for beginners. They're good for trying out new things. They're kind of the industry standard at this point. I don't think that's going to change. You know, I will likely continue to be using my PodPoi for any kind of partner poi stuff. I mean, when it comes right down to it, it's what you're looking for. If you're looking for something heavy, if you're looking for something bright, these are a good option. Yeah. So, there's a whole bunch of different questions here. I'm going to get into them completely out of order. I apologize. First and foremost, Matthew Torres, can you get contact covers for them like PodPoi? No, as far as I know, you can't. Stango writes, why did you not disclose that you received the ePoi for free in your product review video? Honestly, because that's how reviews work. Any review that you see on Gizmodo or anything like that, they got the product for free. Every single review you've ever seen on my channel, I got the product for free. I don't have the money to go out and buy every single set of poi that comes out in the market. I don't have the money to try out multiple wicks or what have you. It's, you know, it's one of those things that if you believe that not disclosing that I got the product for free makes my review biased, then every single review I have ever done is biased, including for Flow Toys, including for Dark Monk, including for absolutely everybody. Let's see here. How do the inner modules compare to each other in features, and does Emazing offer products that accept their modules like Flow Toys? So I'll answer the latter part of that first. They don't currently. Like the thing actually is that the cartridges are glued into place right now. And Lim has said that they want to have them be removable, and they probably will be removable in the next version of this. But these ones cannot be removed right now. The inner modules, you know, it's one of those things that they're kind of difficult to see on video and everything, just because they're like in place. But it's a very plain, just polycarbonate cylinder and everything. There's not much to it. And, you know, it's, in terms of, I mean, it's not a pretty cylinder. Maybe that's why it's glued in place right now. You know, the PodPoi, you know, very clearly are meant to, you're meant to be able to take out the cylinder inside and everything. And, you know, it is a cylinder. I would argue it's a prettier cylinder than what Emazing's got in their product, but inner modules, I mean, the functionality on them is really, really similar. The biggest difference is that in terms of going through the modes, of course, with Flow Toys, you know, you hold down for a couple seconds and you get access to all the sub modes, and you wait for a sub mode to pop up that you want, and you hit it again and everything to turn it off. You just hold down and boom. With the Emazing lights, in order to access those sub modes, you have to hold, oops. So initially they'll turn off is the thing, and it's actually something that kind of took me a second to get used to, is you have to hold them down, and when they go out, you take your hand off the button right away in order to make them stay off. Otherwise, you keep your hand on, and then when they come back in, you kind of cycle through the modes and everything, decide on the one you want, and you can hold down the button again to kind of lock it into place and all that. So in terms of features, I don't know that I can say that one has a huge advantage on the other, aside from I like the accelerometer setting on the ePoi. I wouldn't call it a huge advantage, but it's cool. Yeah, they're really similar, honestly. I don't know that I can pick out a winner on that one. Let's see here. Andrew Hammond, it's easy to add marbles for weight in the pods. Yes, and I've done that in the past. The problem is it's hard to get them to stay. Now, Nikki Evers actually showed me that trick a while back, and I totally loved it until the marbles went flying out one day, and then I stopped doing that. Let's see what else we've got here. I hear that the battery life is a bit shorter. Is the extra weight worth the difference in playtime? So there's a reason I didn't talk about the battery life in the review, and that's because I messed up the day that I was testing it. But it's somewhere between 5 and 6 hours, I think. Essentially, I was expecting it to be right around the 6-hour mark, and I left them alone in my room without checking up on them, and I'd seen them at the 4-hour mark, and they were still doing just fine, and I came back at the 6-hour mark, and they were out. So it's somewhere between 4 and 6 hours, and I couldn't tell you which one it is, and I'm sorry, I had to make my production schedule on getting the video out there, so I didn't get another chance to run that test. Let's see here. Chibar M, do you feel that Emazing is genuinely interested in the Flow community or just reaching to us for financial gain? Well, so here's the thing is, let me parse out that question a little bit, because technically speaking, anybody who sells a product in the flow arts is kind of coming at it for financial gain in some way, shape, or form. The question is, I think more accurately, do I feel as though they're going to do anything positive in the flow community in exchange for that financial interest? And the answer to that question is maybe. I'm still in the process of finding out the answer to that myself. There's some things that they do that I think are really interesting. The way that they approach the global gloving network is quite frankly something that somebody in the flow arts should have already done. The map that they have set up in the interface for it and how you create local meetups and everything is great. And it's inevitable that they're going to start using that for flow arts meetups too, if they already are not. I mean, it's a simpler version of what the flow arts map of the world was supposed to be. We've been, it's a thing that a lot of people have been talking about doing, and it just hasn't been delivered yet. So I think that there's some potential for that. Clearly, the other possibility there is that the gloving competitions get opened up to flow artists, which I don't think it's going to happen this year. I'm almost positive it's not going to happen this year. I am going to the International Gloving Championship in November as a performer and to kind of check the thing out and see what I think about it and everything. It wouldn't surprise me if they go for it next year. I'm not sure what the rules are going to be. I'm not sure how their competitions are structured right now. Could that potentially have positive effects for the flow arts? I believe so, but competitions are another one of those things that are, to put it mildly, a little bit controversial. I like competitions in that they're incentives for people to really work hard at their art. It is also a way that we can point to people outside of the community and be like, hey, these people are really, really good at this and they're really dedicated to this. There are a lot of other ways to accomplish those too, but I happen to believe that competitions are a really good way of doing those things if they're done right, and I don't know yet if it's going to be done right, so it's a big question mark. Let's see here. Sorry, I'm trying to keep track of these as best I can. I wish I'd set this up so I could have had a moderator, but I didn't have time. I'll just go these in order then. What is your opinion on LED ePoi companies making similar products? Should no company ever make a silicone-based tear-shaped LED toy because Flow Toys did it first? I mean, I'm not going to tell businesses how they're supposed to work because that's kind of, I mean, look, it's ultimately up to the consumer. If you don't like what a company does, then don't buy from them. It's that simple. Emazing's not the only company that has kind of a silicone shell around a polycarbonate like kind of element to produce the lights and everything. UltraPoi is using the exact same idea right now. The difference is, of course, is that for the UltraPoi, there's no space in between the polycarbonate core and that like outer housing and everything. So, I mean, honestly, I think it's kind of becoming standard in products that are in this class. I mean, technically speaking, you could even make the argument that you know. The Spinoptic Poi from Lanternsmith follow a similar kind of mold in that there's the light inside and everything, and the housing for it just happens to be in the shape of a contact poi. So no, I don't think that no company should ever use that idea. I think that Flow Toys clearly went through a lot of work and a lot of testing to get the design for Pod Poi, and absolutely everybody agreed when it came out that it was a home run. It still is. And it's one of those things that, like, if nobody's ripping you off, you're not doing a very good job of what you're doing. The fact that they have a design that everybody else has been kind of rushing to catch up with and everything means that they came up with a really good design. And quite frankly, it's also an incentive for them to create a better design in the future, too. I love the guys at Flow Toys. I think that they are incredibly smart. I think that they create beautiful products, and I can't wait to see what they do next. And I absolutely assure you that whichever thing they do next, there's going to be a legion of people behind them that are going to be all like, "Oh, I want to copy that. I want to see if I can make, or even if I can make my own version of that." Because as awesome as the Pod Poi are, they certainly are not perfect. And I think some of the products we've seen released in the last few years attempt to address some of those imperfections while creating others. And I've talked to Sean and Prisna about some of the stuff they have in development, and I know that they know that there's always room for improvement. And I think the next version of Pod Poi are going to address some of those things too. Let's see here. Have you used LED Ninja Poi? No, I've never touched a pair. Do you have a preference in either tether? Are they basically the same? Yes, they're basically the same. It's basically cold cord, a really really thick cold cord. It's slightly stretchy, and other than that, they behave pretty much the same. Yeah. Glover's making poi. I always wondered why. Okay, that's not actually a question. Never mind. Cool. So I think I just worked my way through all of the questions that were already here. Anybody else have any additional questions they want to throw out there, or kind of seeds for additional, I guess, places that this discussion could go? I'll give you guys a few seconds here to type in anything you got on your minds. I guess one thing that we could do is I'm kind of curious from you guys. So I won't lie. There's been part of the reaction that I've seen coming out of the flow arts community that has been kind of something that has made me really really uncomfortable, in that it seems like there's a company that's doing things that we kind of like find a little bit questionable and not sure what to do with that and everything, and the reaction has seemed to be to more or less quarantine them. I've heard people talking about things like having a boycott. I'm not at all sure how that would work. And I guess I would like to see if some of you guys, like, what do you, number one, do you think that it is worth having that conversation with the Emazing? Do you think that it is worth seeing if they can have a role in our future? And if so, how do we go about doing that? So go ahead and start writing comments on that and everything. I believe that they'll stay attached to this video as long as this video is on YouTube. Did get one more question here. As a beginner/intermediate, which would you suggest for first LED poi? This is from Camille Chantel. Beginner for your first LED poi, it depends. It depends on how big an investment you want to make in it. If this is something that you're just getting into casually and you're not sure if it's something you're going to stick with, go with something that's got a low price threshold like Spinballs. If you're willing to drop the money, yeah, Flow Toys, Pod Poi, absolutely. They have been the best entry level option in that price category, and they continue to be. So I absolutely would continue to say that they're kind of the defaults gateway there. Tibar M asks, does Brian Lim get why poi spinners question his motives? Does he seem affected by it? Yes. Well, okay, so let me break this up into two pieces. Does he seem affected by it? Absolutely. When I've talked with him on the phone on the topic, like, to be like 100% honest here, I have never felt more sympathy for the man than I felt when things like first blew up on Poi Chat and people started getting incredibly aggressive and incredibly angry and talking about you don't deserve to be able to talk to us and things like that. It's just like, it's just a company, it's just a person. We don't need to pull out the pitchforks here. And you know, yeah, when I talked with him on the phone, he definitely seemed down in the mouth. He didn't understand why he'd become such a pariah. And does he get why people are upset? The short answer is yes, kind of. He understands. He's still new to the flow arts world. A lot of the values that we've been holding on to for a very long time, some of which I'm going to say are probably a little bit outdated and are not helping us grow as a community, are things that are kind of new to him. And the idea that, and you know, it's one of those things that I think he's made some attempts at being a good citizen, but there's a narrative that's been created around him and his company that he's either going to have an incredibly difficult time shaking, or he's just going to have to step away from things for a while and let people cool down. Things like, you know, when he asked who people want to see at the International Gloving Championship, you know, it's, in the grand scheme of things, that's not a horrible thing for him to come and ask all of us. And yet the reaction was still, let's run him out of town on a rail. And that was one of those things that I think very specifically he kind of was very, very, very taken aback by the severity of the reaction, and I think for good reason. In terms of does he get yet how to be a good citizen in the flow arts community? I would say that is a work in progress. I would say that, you know, there are certain things that he's used to as a member of the gloving community that are not going to fly here among the flow arts world. And, you know, I think that there is a conversation to be had there in terms of, you know, are we reasonable in everything that we ask? And, you know, if so, how does he plug into all of that? And I think that there's some give and take in that conversation. Are we there yet? No. Is there any softer alternatives of contact poi on the market? I mean, the softest contact poi is not soft, and I don't think that it can be, because fundamentally you're talking about a ball that needs to not bounce when it comes in contact with something. If it bounces, contact rolls don't work. So it has to absorb impact rather than bouncing away from it. And there's no way that you get away from having a hard object for that. The best you can hope for is, one of the reasons that I love the emojis that Lanternsmith makes so much is that you can control the amount of weight inside of them. And the less weight that you put inside of them, the less they will hurt when they hit you. That is really the best you can hope for, is less mass. The surface of it is kind of an immovable object in a lot of respects. Let's see here. Yeah, and I think that's all the questions that have been asked thus far. So please keep them coming, guys. And also, if you want to take my prompt for questions, please leave your comments on that and everything. I'm probably going to try and wind this down in the next 5 minutes unless I get a whole shit ton more questions coming in. So, how is your day? My day is alright. I had to go into the doctor because I have a really nasty skin infection right now that hasn't gone away for like a week, and that was unpleasant. But aside from that, my day has been just fine. Do you consider gloving a flow art? Again, let me parse this out, because flow arts is one of those labels that is kind of problematic in that who gets to own it is a very open and very contentious question. For example, we have flow arts retreats, and we have all the things that we would expect to see at them, like poi and hoops and stabs and everything, but also frequently we see things like aerial rigs. Now, are aerials a flow art? Would all aerialists describe themselves as practicing a flow art? I don't know. I think that many aerialists probably would describe themselves as flow artists, at least a lot of ones that come around to the events. But are aerials overall a flow art? I don't know. So is gloving a flow art? It's the same question. Would glovers consider themselves to be flow artists? I think some of them probably would. It's one of those things that I think flow arts is really a description of a philosophy more than it is a kind of category of a type of hobby. Are there glovers that kind of do it as a personal meditative art? Yes, I'm absolutely certain that there are. Do they call themselves flow artists? I don't know. It's one of many things that I'm hoping to find out when I go to the IGC in November. Because, you know, we've seen a lot of efforts in the past few years to merge the kind of flow arts and circus communities, and you know, clearly flow arts is a term that a lot of people in the circus community are really, really uncomfortable with. So it could be that glovers are just as uncomfortable with it. It could be they embrace the term. I don't know. We'll have to see. Have you ever thought about designing your own poi? I kind of did. In that they're a contact poi that I sell. In terms of glow poi, no, it's never crossed my mind because, quite frankly, everybody whose poi I've worked with have done a better job of it than I would have, number one. And number two, they come up with innovative answers to problems that I never would have thought of. So, no, I've never thought of trying to design a glow prop because I have friends that do it and they're way better at it than I am. What is your day job? Flow arts. I make my videos, I teach, I perform, I sell contact poi. That is my full-time job. So, yeah. Have you had a lot of backlash due to your review or limited association with Emazing? Yeah. Yes, I have. And it's interesting to me. I don't know, some of the responses to it have been very interesting in that, you know, some people have accused me of selling out, some people have accused me of, you know, being in bed with Emazing and, you know, being an apologist for them or what have you, and it's one of those things that part of what has made the response to Emazing so incredibly depressing to me is that being in a position where I don't take a strong stand on the company as an ethical entity automatically to some people means that I am the enemy. And if we just like back that up a second and think, okay, so trying to stay neutral means that I'm biased. That's kind of messed up. So yeah, I mean, I knew that it was going to happen. I was expecting it. You know, there's no way that you can see people being angry towards you and not, in some respects, take it personally, but I was as prepared for it as I possibly could be. You know, I remember back the first year that I did the top 10 list for poi spinners, and people were very, very upset about that. I legitimately thought that the first Flow Fest I was going to go to, I was going to get run out of town on a rail. So by comparison, the reaction has been a little bit less severe. But, yeah, I knew it was coming, and, so be it. Do you still do Skype lessons? Yes, I do. You can send me an email, drex@drexfactor.com, if you want to try and schedule one. Let's see here. Kevin Extel asks, are you considering working more in depth or expanding your business relationship with Emazing? So the short answer is we're going to see. So one of the reasons I'm going out to the International Gloving Championship is because I want to spend some time with them. I want to learn a little bit more about them and how they do business. And are there opportunities for us to work together? Yes, I think that there are opportunities. Are we going to work together? I don't know yet. Right now, the only things that we have really set up are that I do a review for them, and then I'm going to IGC. That's the extent of our working relationship right now. And I think it's kind of one of those let's feel each other out and wait and see kind of moments. It's... yeah, I would like to say that that's the tact I've taken with every company that I've worked with, but that's not true. There have been plenty of companies that I have just jumped straight into working with, but this is one that I'm kind of moving slowly and piece by piece. And, part of it too for me is, knowing that they have had some issues with how they deal with intellectual property on their Facebook page and everything. I set down some ground rules in terms of how they handle the promotion of me being at IGC. And part of the reason for that was to see, okay, are they willing to play inside of this? And yeah, everything's been fine so far. So what are the possibilities there? I mean, I think clearly having some flow artists involved in, if they do competitions for flow arts in the future, would be a good idea. And in addition, my thing is always education, and they have a section of the Emazing site that is devoted to gloving education right now, and I would be shocked if they didn't try and expand it to flow arts at some point in the future. So there might be an opportunity to work together there. I don't know yet. We will have to see. Let's see here. Have you heard of spin balls? They're marketed towards children, not adults, but it's LED poi for kids. Saw this on television and was random. Yes, in fact, the first commercial that they did for TV, I was in, along with Noelle, Kate, and Gina from the Four Ways Project. Yes, I've seen them. Kevin and Jimmy are friends of mine. They're good people. I like them a lot. And also a great example of one of those moments when, the commercial went live. I remember I was on my way driving into Burning Man, and people lost their minds over it. They were very upset that the commercial existed, and, didn't get that the people behind it were good people, and that they had really good intentions, and they were doing good work, and it took a while for people to kind of calm down and realize that that was the case. And, Kevin and Jimmy are really, really awesome people. There's a project I'm working with them on right now, and I'm very, very proud to call them friends. And they make a great entry-level set of poi. And, if you're, like I mentioned earlier in the video, if you are, at the beginning of that journey, you're not sure how big an investment you want to make, yeah, drop the $20. Absolutely. They're totally worth it. Have you used contact poi made with Babosh stage heads? Actually, yeah. When I first started making contact poi, I was using Mr. Babosh heads, and then I moved over to play heads. Partially because just like business-wise, it didn't make sense for me to be buying balls from multiple different sources because Babosh doesn't make a 90mm. But yeah, I've used Babosh. They're a decent stage ball and everything. They're a little squishier than the play balls are. But yeah, I mean, aside from that, they're pretty much the same thing. Oh, I missed this one earlier. Who are some poi spinners you look up to or are influenced by? In terms of influences, quite frankly, if you are really, really familiar with Alien John and Ronan, I will never do something that surprises you. I am totally indebted to the two of them for 90% of my style. You know, Ronan is one of those great early masters of the poi form, and one of the things I love about his style that I like, it's one of those things that I really, really respect about him, but I've never been able to like kind of find it in my own style, is the way he uses stillness. Absolutely everybody who spins poi, it's all about keeping it in motion, and Ronan is the only person that makes the stillness of the poi just as important as the motion, and it makes his style beautiful. Alien John, very, very clearly, I get the like headier, nerdier side of things from him. The kind of approach to poi spinning as like find the variables, isolate the variables, and change them to get this and this and that. I would say that people right now who I really, really respect that do poi, the biggest one with a bullet is Alexander Nagashevsky from Russia. The things that that kid is doing with 4-poi are mind-blowing. And here's the important thing. Like, there's a lot of people out there that do 4-poi. He makes it beautiful. In terms of working on 4-poi, there's a reason you haven't seen any videos of me doing it in quite some time, which is just that once he started making videos, it was one of those things that's just like, if I'm not at least this beautiful, I have no business throwing a video of this up. And I'm not that beautiful at it yet. So that's how that goes. Other people that I really respect that are spinning poi right now. There's a few people that I follow on Instagram that really continually are interesting to me. There's a guy, I won't even try to pronounce it. It's like AOI_poi. He does a lot of 3-poi and gunslingers and things like that. That's really awesome. Oh, also this kid. I want to say it's like Gizmo Poi or something like that. Just like mind-blowingly beautiful, beautiful, beautiful style. Like, you know, he does a lot of anti-brids and things like that I do myself, and I always feel like when I spin I'm a little bit clunky. I don't have a lot of movement in my background, and I've spent the past 7 years learning dance to try and fix that. And this kid just, like, he has it right out the gate, and, like, I've never seen a video from him that I didn't just sit there like, actually, real quickly, let me see if I can get you the real name, because I'm going to feel really, really bad if I've given the wrong name on that one, because he is well worth tuning into on Instagram. It is Gizmo Journeys. His real name is Israel Guerrero. So, yeah, check that guy out. He's amazing. Let's see here. What are your thoughts on Emazing copying Spinball's product design? Has Kevin or Jimmy reached out to you about your involvement with Emazing? So, back when the ePoi first came out, Brian Lim reached out to me. He had heard of me through a mutual friend, Paul Dunker Greenbaum, and wanted to talk to me, and we had a couple conversations. And during that period when we were kind of figuring out what our business relationship was going to be, if anything, there were a lot of people that I reached out to ask them their opinion on you know, having a working relationship with Emazing or having any relationship with them at all. Kevin was one of those people that I talked to during that period. And, you know, it's one of those things that, you know, if the people that I talk to want to make their opinions known publicly, I will give them the space to do so. It is not my job to, I shouldn't say not my job, it is not my place to express their views for them publicly. They have a mouth, they have fingers and a keyboard and everything. My opinion on Emazing copying Spinball's product design. I'm assuming you mean the little sets of glow poi and everything, the kind of entry level set and everything. I mean, in copying another company's designs or like using elements of it or what have you, I mean, you know, clearly it's not the first time. I doubt it's going to be the last time. You know, I guess. Kevin and Jimmy are awesome guys. You know, like I said before, they are worth supporting. Um, especially like the work they've done with little kids and everything, teaching them to spin poi and everything. It you know, decide who you want to support and who you want to give money to, and you know it Kevin and Jimmy, just I can't say much more other than they're really really good guys, and if you want to support them, then your money's well spent. And yeah, I think that's all I can really say about that right now. Let's see here. Why don't you do more with clubs? Thanks, Kevin. The short answer is that I don't have a pair of them, and quite frankly, I am so in love with practicing poi that it's really, really difficult for me to find time to do anything else. I've tried in the past 2 years with double staff, and I will be the first to argue that hang on, I need a little bit of water here. I will be the first to argue that my output thereof is not as beautiful and not as creative as it could be. And part of the reason for that is that every time I go out to practice, I just want to spin poi. So, yeah, I mean, maybe one of these days I'll pick up clubs and I'll play around with them a little bit more. But the short answer just is you know, there's that old fable about the difference between hedgehogs and foxes, that like foxes like to be kind of good at a lot of things, and hedgehogs really like to go deep and be like really, really good at just a few things. And by my nature, I'm a hedgehog. A lot of people have tried in the past to get me to spin a variety of different props. And the thing is that if I, you know, in playing around with it, if I'm not just all like, you know, I'm going to go down the rabbit hole on this, then I just don't really keep up with it. So maybe one of these days. Have you seen what's under there? Under what? Anyway, is there a new trick that you are working on? Yes, I have been doing lots and lots and lots of gunslingers lately. Yeah, gunslingers are one of those things that I did realize fairly early on that they were going to take a lot of work to get there, and they have taken a lot of work to get there. So I have been working on them now for many, many months, and I've only started making videos, so that gives you some idea of what the learning curve is. Little known fact, I am terrible at learning new things. It takes me hours upon hours, weeks upon weeks to get things that are not like by default in my book of tricks and everything, and gunslingers have been one of those things. 4-poi is also one of those things. So, yeah, gunslingers. What did Brian Lim have to say about gloving and drug use? Anything come out about gloving being banned from music festivals? Yeah, we did. We talked a little bit about gloving being banned from music festivals, and it's something that, you know, he's really upset about because, you know, EDM is kind of his roots. It is not my roots. And, you know, I can imagine that it would really suck, you know, if, say, they banned fire spinning at Burning Man, for example. I mean, that would leave me heartbroken, and I'm sure that Brian feels the same way about gloving being banned at lots of music festivals. In terms of talking about drug use, the topic has never come up between the two of us. To be honest with you, like, there's a lot of drug use already in the flow arts community. I don't think we are hugely at risk of being corrupted in that regard because, you know, to be quite frank with you, I'm a sober spinner. I don't take drugs at festivals or at all. And there have been so many times when it has resulted in me feeling like an outsider at a lot of events that I go to. So in terms of comparing ourselves to the gloving community, that is absolutely one of those people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones kind of things. Let's see here. Okay, so that's that. I'll take that because I think that's an important question, and I'm going to try and wrap it up here in the next 5 minutes because I still haven't eaten lunch. What's happening with the FAI safety program? Okay, so short answer here is that originally the director of the fire safety program, Howard Chen, kind of stepped away from it towards the beginning of this year. And I interviewed for and got the position, but my contract was a temporary one. We wanted to try it out for 6 months. My contract expired in August, and we've had several conversations now about extending that contract. And if memory serves, we're supposed to have a call about it in, I think, another week. I think it's next week is we're going to have the call, and we'll see if the contract gets renewed. And if it does get renewed, then I come back in and I make sure everybody has their certificates, and we talk about what the fire safety program is going to be doing in 2017. There's a lot of really, really cool things that are on the plate right now, some of which I probably shouldn't discuss just to keep from jinxing them, or because they involve discussions with fire marshals and things like that. And if my contract isn't renewed, then fire safety is really important to FAI, and if it's not me, it will be somebody else. And I'm sure that they will do an amazing job. We'll see. But yeah, that's what's going on right now. Do you need a mirror to progress? I haven't used one since I moved a couple months ago, and it seems like my planes have gotten a bit floppy. Short answer, is it necessary? No. Is it unbelievably helpful? Yes. If you don't have a mirror, I would suggest videoing yourself instead. The biggest reason is that it's very, very easy to lie to yourself in terms of what you're doing and how it looks. And video and mirrors force you to be honest. They force you to see what you're doing well and what you're not doing well. I would say if you have any inclination whatsoever to be a performer, then either video or mirror is absolutely necessary. If you just want to play around, if you just want to chill and spin and do things that you enjoy, no, it's not necessary. Let's see here. Hi Drex, just tuning in. No worries if you answered already, but what actually happened between Emazing and Spinballs? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. Yeah, I'm sorry. I wish I did. So cool. We've got about a minute before I shut this thing down, so if anybody's got any last minute questions, please throw them out there, and I will be happy to answer them with the little time that I've got left, and afterwards I'm going to finally eat some lunch, because I'm starving. And that's the dog. Her name is Phaedra, if you guys are curious. I can't tell if you guys can hear her on the mic or not, but she's adorable and very, very energetic for an 8-year-old puppy. Cool. So got about 30 seconds left. I don't see any more questions coming in, so I'm going to say that it's winding down. Thank you guys for tuning in. This video will be available on my YouTube channel for the long future into God only knows when. Yeah, this is the first time I've done this, so it's a little bit of an experiment. Thank you guys for tuning in. Oh, there are a couple last minute questions. What's your favorite song to spin to? It is a song by The Naked and the Famous, and let me pull up the track here. It is The Runners. It's off of their new album, Simple Forms. Like I mentioned before, I don't come out of the EDM world, and these guys are a really cool synth rock group out of New Zealand, and they are one of my favorite groups right now. They're coming through DC and Baltimore next month, and I cannot wait to see them. Are you going to Florida Flow Fest? No, I'm afraid not. I have a scheduling conflict with it now. There were some discussions about me going there earlier in the year, but they just didn't pan out. Cool. And with that, I'm going to say that I'm done. Thank you all for tuning in, and if you have any more questions, feel free to leave them in the comments in this video, and I will try and get to them when I can. Sweet. Peace, y'all.